Welcome to Mind Research Rewired. We unveil scientific truths to transform confusion into clear thinking. Unlock a sharper, more effective you based on proven research. Subscribe now and elevate your life.
Picture this scenario. You are an incredibly talented visionary chef.
Okay.
You open a restaurant because you absolutely love the heat of the kitchen. Like, you live for the precision of the knife work, the chaos of the dinner rush, all of it.
Yeah, the craft.
Exactly. The craft.
Yeah.
That look on a customer's face when they taste a perfectly executed reduction. That is your fire. That's what gets you out of bed. But fast forward 2 years.
I know where this is going.
Right. What does your Tuesday actually look like now?
Sure.
I mean, you are spending 90% of your time fixing the restaurant's plumbing, arguing with accountants over the, fluctuating price of butter, and trying to optimize your local search ads.
Yeah, the business has completely swallowed the crap.
Totally swallowed it.
It's a devastatingly common reality, honestly. The very thing that sparked the venture gets smothered by spreadsheets and operational friction. And the founder wakes up one day realizing they built themselves a prison.
Yes. A prison. And I know you listening to this right now have felt some version of that friction. You're an ambitious founder, you're grinding away, maybe managing a complex technical build or, navigating high-level strategy,
Right.
all while desperately trying to hold on to the original passion that made you take the leap in the first place. So today, we are bringing you a deep dive that aims to fundamentally reframe how you think about your relationship with your venture.
It's a big one today.
It is. We're looking at a 2024 doctoral thesis by Diana Ivanatcheva from Macquarie University's Department of Management. It's titled Lifestyle Entrepreneurship: Reconciling Personal Fulfillment with Business Demands.
And, what makes this research so compelling is its rigorous challenge to the standard Silicon Valley playbook. Like, we are bombarded with this culturally ingrained idea of founder identity, right?
The hustle culture.
The hustle culture, exactly. The growth at all costs mindset, the obsession with scaling operations and delegating absolutely everything. But this thesis, it uses deep psychological and qualitative data to prove that if your venture is built around something you genuinely love, adopting that traditional growth mindset isn't just unhelpful.
Yeah.
It can actually be deeply toxic to your success.
So we're talking about a specific breed of founder here, which the paper calls the lifestyle entrepreneur. But before we get into the psychology of how they survive burnout, let's draw a fence around what that term actually means, because it's not what I initially thought it was.
Right, yeah. Traditionally, researchers categorize entrepreneurship by its primary driving force. You have wealth-driven founders who are, engineering a machine for a massive future exit.
The unicorn chasers.
Exactly. Then you have income-driven founders who are essentially just trying to pay the bills and survive.
Oh.
And you have social value founders trying to solve a systemic problem. But lifestyle entrepreneurship, or LE, it operates on an entirely different axis.
Okay, how so?
It is driven purely by intrinsic rewards. The primary goal of the business is the current everyday consumption of an amenity, basically doing what you love right now, rather than waiting for a delayed financial payoff.
Okay, let me pause you right there and play devil's advocate.
Hang on.
Because I can hear the hardcore strategists and the tech founders listening right now thinking, if they aren't driven by massive scale and they aren't trying to maximize enterprise value, aren't these just glorified hobbies?
Right.
Like, why should someone trying to build a real impactful business care about the psychology of a hobbyist?
That is the exact assumption this research dismantles, actually. The data completely shatters the glorified hobby myth.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. The economic footprint of these lifestyle founders is staggering. They operate in sectors that generate billions of dollars globally. I mean, the thesis points to platforms like Etsy, which is essentially a massive global infrastructure for creative expression.
Oh, wow. True.
In 2022 alone, Etsy generated $13.5 billion in gross merchandise sales. Or consider the global yoga and wellness industry, which is practically built on the backs of activity-driven lifestyle entrepreneurs.
Right. Local studios and instructors.
Exactly. That industry is valued at over $16 billion. So these are not weekend projects. They are powerful, resilient micro-businesses driving significant economic engines.
So the scale of the collective market is massive, even if the individual nodes, like the founders themselves, are keeping their operations intentionally tight.
Precisely. And to understand how they operate, The thesis breaks these lifestyle entrepreneurs down into three highly specific archetypes.
Let's hear them.
First, you have the expression-driven lifestyle entrepreneur, the ELE. These are your artisans, your crafters, your creators.
Like the custom furniture maker.
Yes, or the independent developer building a highly niche app or, a boutique chocolatier. Their core drive is to express their personal identity and values through their craft.
Which makes total sense. Their business is basically a mirror of their internal world.
Exactly. Then you have the second archetype, the activity-driven founder, or ALE. These individuals are driven by a deep, consuming passion for a specific sport or recreation.
So like a surf instructor.
A surf instructor, a yoga teacher, or the founder of a boutique climbing gym. They build a commercial structure specifically so they never have to stop doing the physical activity they love.
Okay, that's two. What's the third?
Finally, the third archetype is location-driven, the LLE. They are anchored by a profound desire to live in a specific, usually remote or really beautiful place.
Ah, okay. Like rural eco-lodges.
Exactly. Eco-lodges, vineyard bed and breakfasts, or specialized regional tourism companies.
Got it. So synthesizing that as a founder, step one is recognizing which of these engines is actually driving your ambition.
Right.
Like are you expressing a craft, pursuing an activity, or anchoring to a location?
Yeah, that's the first step.
Because it seems to me that the type of archetype you are would dictate the specific type of friction you face. I mean, an expression-driven founder probably burns out on supply chain logistics, while a location-driven founder might burn out on, like, the isolation or the infrastructure challenges of being remote.
That is a very sharp observation. The friction points differ, for sure, but the underlying psychological collision is exactly the same. And that collision happens because, in Western society, we are conditioned to separate our lives into clean boxes.
Right, work and play.
Exactly. You have your leisure domain, the things you do for joy, and your work domain, the things you do to survive. Lifestyle founders take a sledgehammer to those boxes. They force the leisure domain and the work domain to occupy the exact same physical and mental space.
Yeah, which, sounds like a dream come true on paper. You do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
That's the cliche, yeah.
But the research shows that forcing those domains together actually creates a massive identity crisis. The sanctuary becomes the spreadsheet. How does the psychology change when the hobby becomes the job?
It creates a fascinating psychological phenomenon that the researcher identifies as business disidentification.
Wait, business disidentification. Let's unpack that term, because it sounds like they are just in denial. What does that actually mean for the founder on a day-to-day basis?
It means these founders vehemently love the lifestyle and the craft, but they actively, deliberately detach their personal identity from the traditional business tasks.
Like what?
The marketing, the budgeting, the scaling, the hiring. They refuse to internalize those activities as part of who they are. They might do them, but they completely disidentify with them.
This was incredibly vivid in the interview data from the source text. There were these real-world stories that brought this abstract concept right down to earth. Like, let's look at the story of Caleb.
Oh, Caleb's a perfect example.
Right. Caleb runs a craft-based business, and at one point, he tried to act like a real entrepreneur. He hired a business mentor, he read all the classic growth hacking books, and the advice he received was the standard gospel.
Scale your operations. Build standard operating procedures, remove yourself from production, and delegate.
The classic E-Myth strategy. Work on your business, not in your business.
Yep. And Caleb tried it. But he quickly realized that stepping back from production meant stepping away from his soul.
Wow.
If he delegates the actual creation of the product to junior staff so he can, sit in an office and focus on top-line revenue, he completely loses the very thing he started the business to do. The advice designed to save his business was actually destroying his motivation to run it.
That is wild. Caleb's experience perfectly illustrates the danger of misapplying traditional business advice. And then you have Harper, right? The yoga teacher featured in the research.
Yeah, Harper faces a slightly different flavor of this crisis.
She despises the friction of pricing, sales, and marketing. For her, the act of teaching yoga is an organic, almost spiritual exchange. When she has to put a price tag on it or convince someone to buy a package, she feels like it corrupts the purity of the activity.
It feels dirty to her.
Exactly. It forces her to adopt the identity of a salesperson, which is an identity she completely rejects.
It goes right back to that chef analogy we started with. You want to be cooking, but you are stuck in the back office arguing with the accountant. The business eats the craft.
And this seems to be the critical pivot point for these founders. Traditional startup advisors or venture capitalists would look at Caleb and Harper and say, you need to grow up. To survive this friction, you must adopt a strong entrepreneurial identity. Put on the CEO hat, embrace the numbers, and lead.
Right, but this doctoral research argues that for lifestyle founders, adopting that CEO mindset is actually fatal to the venture.
Wait, fatal.
It is fatal because it completely misunderstands the architecture of their motivation. If they force themselves to identify as a traditional CEO, the intrinsic reward vanishes. To survive, the research shows they engage in a psychological mechanism called conditional organizational identification.
Let's break that down. Conditional organizational identification. I want to make sure we translate that clearly for the founder who is currently driving to work or hitting the gym while listening to this.
Simply put, it means successful lifestyle founders draw a very hard line in the sand. They say, I only identify with this business insofar as it allows me to maintain my specific lifestyle and my craft.
Ah, okay.
Their loyalty is to the craft first, the business second. If the business demands that they give up the hands-on creation to become a full-time manager, they will mentally and sometimes literally walk away, even if the business is highly profitable.
That is just mind-blowing to think about. They will willingly throttle their own profit or walk away from revenue just to protect the craft. It totally inverts the standard metric of success. So how do they actually pull this off without the business collapsing? Because you can't just ignore the taxes and the marketing forever, right?
They survive this tension through two very specific, deliberate micro-processes. The first one is called scoping.
Scoping.
Yeah. Scoping is the fierce, intentional protection of the roles the founder actually enjoys doing. It is the custom furniture maker refusing to leave the workshop floor. It is the surf instructor refusing to just sit on the beach and manage a team of junior instructors. They deliberately scope their daily role to ensure they are the ones doing the hands-on creation.
But wait, let me challenge that for a second. Because every single framework for scaling a business tells founders they have to delegate the technical work to avoid becoming a bottleneck. Are you saying this research argues they should actively refuse to delegate the core craft?
Yes. And it is a beautifully counterintuitive point. For a lifestyle founder, delegating the core craft defeats the entire purpose of the business's existence.
Because they lose the joy.
Exactly. Think of it this way. They aren't trying to build a machine to sell to the highest bidder. They are trying to build a habitat to live in.
A habitat to live in.
If you delegate the work that gives you joy, you have essentially evicted yourself from your own habitat. A lifestyle business without the founder's hands-on passion is just a hollow shell. They lose their identity, they lose their joy, and the business ultimately dies from a lack of founder energy.
I love that distinction. A machine to sell versus a habitat to live in. That completely changes how you view a bottleneck.
Yeah.
For them, being the bottleneck isn't a flaw in the system. It's the anchor that keeps them connected to the work.
Exactly right.
But that brings up the second problem. They still have to do the administrative work. The habitat still needs a roof and plumbing. How do they handle the tasks they hate if they refuse to identify as a business person?
That is where the second survival mechanism comes into play. It's called self-rationalizing. When these founders are inevitably forced to do the boring, draining, purely administrative tasks, the bookkeeping, the SEO optimization, the supply chain logistics, they use a form of mental judo.
Mental judo, I like that.
They frame those tasks not as a core part of their identity, but as an unavoidable toll.
The toll they pay for their freedom.
Precisely. The internal monologue shifts. They tell themselves, I am not an accountant, I am a craftsman, but spending 2 hours on these spreadsheets today is the toll I must pay to ensure I never have to go back to a rigid, soulless corporate cubicle.
Wow.
It is a highly effective cognitive boundary. It allows them to do the work without letting the work infect their sense of self.
That is incredibly practical. You compartmentalize the misery by attaching it to the ultimate goal of autonomy.
Okay.
On a Tuesday at 4 p.m., when the website crashes, a major supplier backs out, you are exhausted, and the romantic vision of the craft feels very, very far away. How does a founder actually manage that emotional roller coaster? Because drawing boundaries sounds great in theory, but it has to be incredibly draining to sustain that tension day after day.
It is exhausting, and it requires constant maintenance. The third major section of the thesis investigates exactly this: how founders manage the chaos through cognitive and practice-oriented identity work.
So how are they hacking their own psychology in those moments of crisis? Let's start with the cognitive side.
On the cognitive side, it involves anchoring to a higher purpose and actively redefining what hardship means. When they are pulling a brutal 14-hour day dealing with logistical nightmares, they do not look at it as a failure of their management skills.
Right, they don't say, I'm a bad CEO.
Exactly. Instead, they reframe the struggle as a noble pursuit of authenticity. They tell themselves that this specific exhaustion is worth it because it guarantees their autonomy. They actively reject the cultural image of the slick, profit-maximizing entrepreneur and embrace the identity of the resilient, independent creator.
It's a different kind of status symbol. It's not about crushing quarterly revenue targets. It's about surviving on their own terms.
Yeah.
But you mentioned practice-oriented identity work as well, and this part of the research felt so incredibly visceral to me. It's not just mental gymnastics, right? It's physical action.
It is arguably the most crucial tactic for long-term survival. The research shows that to maintain their motivation, these founders must actively carve out time to engage in their craft purely for enjoyment, entirely separated from the monetization of the business.
So no charging for it.
Nope. They have to deliberately reenact the leisure experience to remind their nervous system why they built the business in the first place.
The story of Reed from the text perfectly captures this. Reed is a custom furniture maker, a total tool nerd who built his business around his love for woodworking. And he talks about those moments of total burnout.
Yeah, when he just wants to quit.
Right. When he is completely overwhelmed by client demands, billing issues, and the sheer weight of running the business, he's ready to just throw the towel in. But he doesn't read a motivational business book or look at his profit and loss statement to hype himself up.
What does he do?
He physically walks into his workshop alone. He looks at his machinery. He runs his hands over his tools. He breathes in the smell of the sawdust, the heavy physical reality of the craft, the sensory experience of the habitat he built, literally resets his brain.
That is so powerful.
In his own words, it snaps him out of the despair of the business and anchors him right back to his true identity as a creator. It's a physical grounding technique.
If we pull back and look at the bigger picture here, the profound lesson for any founder is that you do not need to resolve the tension between being an artisan and being an operator. We are constantly taught that tension is bad, that we must harmonize every aspect of our lives and perfectly blend our passions with our profit.
But that's impossible.
Exactly. This thesis argues that harmony is a myth. You just have to manage the tension. You have to sustain it. You do not have to call yourself a CEO or adopt a corporate identity to run a successful, deeply fulfilling business.
That is such a liberating concept. You don't have to fix the tension, you just have to manage it. So what does this all mean for you right now listening to this deep dive? Let's get hyper-tactical. We don't just want to leave you with abstract theory. Based on this brilliant research, here are 3 things you can execute today to rewire your founder mindset and protect your craft.
Let's lay out the action plan.
Action 1. Conduct a scope audit. I want you to open up your calendar for the next week. Look at where your hours are actually going. Are you fiercely protecting the hands-on activities that made you start this venture? Like if you are a designer, are you actually designing? If you are a coder, are you coding?
Crucial question.
Identify one purely business task on your calendar that you absolutely despise and mentally reframe it today using self-rationalization. Say it out loud. This administrative task is not who I am. It is simply the toll I pay for my ultimate freedom.
That single reframe can act as a massive pressure release valve for burnout. What is the second action?
Action 2. Schedule a leisure reenactment block. Take your core product or service and engage with it today purely for fun, with absolutely zero monetization attached.
Just for you.
Yes, just for you. If you build custom bicycles, put down the spreadsheets and go for a ride. If you write software, spend 1 hour building a tiny, completely useless, hilarious app just for yourself. Reconnect with the intrinsic reward that started all of this. Reset your brain through physical action, just like Reed in his workshop.
It is so easy to forget to play with the tools we use to build our lives. That is vital advice.
And action 3. Redefine your failure condition. Society tells you that failure is a lack of top-line growth. The tech world tells you failure is not hitting a massive valuation multiple.
But that's their metric.
Stop playing their game. Based on this research, you need to redefine failure as the loss of your lifestyle and your autonomy. If your business is small, if your revenue is flat, but you have total freedom over your time and you love your daily craft, you are winning.
This does raise one final, highly provocative question, though, and it is a lingering thought drawn directly from the thesis's conclusions on what academics call socio-emotional wealth.
Socio-emotional wealth. That sounds heavy. Let's break that down before we wrap up.
So socio-emotional wealth refers to the idea that the value of your business isn't just sitting in its bank account. The value is in the emotional fulfillment, the identity, and the specific lifestyle it provides you. It's the ghost in the machine. And this creates a massive complication when you think about the end game. What happens when you want to exit?
Because you aren't just selling a standard scalable widget factory.
Exactly. Because a lifestyle business is deeply, inextricably anchored to the founder's personal identity and their socio-emotional wealth. Valuing and selling it is incredibly complex. When you go to sell, you aren't just transferring a cash flow engine to a buyer. You are essentially trying to sell your own emotional habitat.
Wow. Yeah.
And for a buyer to find that habitat valuable, they must share your exact passions, your exact quirks, and your exact vision for that lifestyle. It shrinks the pool of potential buyers dramatically. It fundamentally changes the end game of building a startup. It's not a standard financial acquisition, it's the transfer of a way of life.
Which means if you are going to build a habitat, you better make sure it's a life you actually want to live in, because you might be living in it for a very long time. All right, it is time for some interactive self-reflection. We want to hear from you. We have 2 direct questions for you to sit with today, and we want you to drop your answers in the comments or reviews wherever you are listening or watching this deep dive. Question 1. Which of the 3 lifestyle archetypes, expression, activity, or location is the secret engine driving your ambition right now?
And question 2. What is the one specific business task you absolutely despise, and how are you going to mentally reframe it today as the toll you pay for your freedom?
Leave your thoughts in the comments or hit us up in the reviews. We read them all, and we love debating these mindset shifts with you. If this deep dive changed how you view your daily grind, make sure you subscribe to the show so you never miss our next breakdown. Remember the chef we talked about at the beginning? Don't let the plumbing distract you from the fire of the kitchen. Keep building, keep fiercely protecting your craft, and we will see you in the next deep dive.